a lot of memories have come back to me. As PJ said, I lived in the Chicago area for over 50 years. So basically there's three quarters of my life. One is in Iraq until I was 24. The rest, some of it all over a few other countries, England, but most of it is in Chicago the next 25 years, and in the suburbs, and then I'm back to Chicago now, to the downtown. So the reason why I feel so passionate about this place is because for 25 years I lived in this area, Hinsdale, Oak Brook. It is an area, it is a place where I really grew up sort of in a way. My whole personality, my formative years in it, first of all professionally, that's when I matured as an orthopedic surgeon. Socially, I started having all my friends here and met a lot of great people. And then personally, raising my family and my two children who went to Hinsdale Central. As well as spiritually, my association with Christ Church of Oak Brook has been one of the hallmarks of my life. And through that, I really formed a lot of what I thought and my beliefs, and I met people that were just awesome. And one of them is, I'm sure you know, if you don't, you should, Reverend DeCryder. Reverend DeCryder was not only a pastor, but he was a friend of mine, and it was an amazing relationship that really touched me, and we became friends. And through that church, I met a lot of other great people, and one of them is PJ's dad, Peter, and his family, and it just these memories just keep me alive in this place, and how I remember all these strong friendships, and I will cherish them. It's a wonderful time, and yet life is not always like that, because as we move on, we will get challenges. So the first part of what I'm going to do is tell you my story about mindfulness, and then I'll move on to a few more details about it. The 80s were great. Honestly, I have been blessed with a great life. I had a great education. I came and it was just wonderful with the atmosphere, with the family, with everything was flowing. And the 90s came and it was still good. Of course, there was the war in Iraq and my parents and all that, but everything. And then in the mid 90s and late 90s, things started falling apart. There were losses and failures. There were deaths and divorces. And in 2002, I took off for 9 days to a silent retreat. This was like baptism by fire. I went all of us. I had this attraction to it, and so that retreat set me on this path of mindfulness. That retreat, since then, I was attracted to it, I resonated with it, and since then, I have been practicing on a daily basis. Now, things, you do the right things and you feel, okay, so, life is going to be good, but, things don't always work out. So the next year after that, 2003, was not a good year for me. I was divorced from my second wife. My partner in business left me. My mother passed away, and the mother of my children, my first wife, died. 4 years later, I was diagnosed with a bone marrow disease that was really a precursor for leukemia, I thought, and it hurt me so much because I was worried about my kids. Who's going to be there for them if I am gone? I got over that, and then I had back surgery, and leave it to an orthopedic surgeon to have back surgery and get one of the worst complications. I had an infection. I could hardly move for 2 months. And all that went along. I got over them. It took me a while. But little did I know that these were actually not the biggest thing I will get in my life. I lost my son in 2010. And that episode and trauma was left me in a dark place, left me looking for a way out and overwhelming grief. And I can say, yes, I had, my perseverance, my family, my faith, a lot of things helped me. But honestly, that practice that I started years ago carried me through. What it did, it gave me clarity. It made me make some decisions that I made that helped me throughout getting through that pain, and also processing it and seeing it for what it is and going through the challenge instead of moving around it, above and below, and trying to avoid it. And through that, I got deeper into this practice, and I started teaching it. And it's a passion in me because of his memory, which I carry with me all the time. I dedicate everything that I do to him. And he was John's best friend. And so all of this comes back to me as I am here today. And that practice had sustained me. And so this is my story about this. And if I can just now start, as I calm down a bit, talk about that subject of mindfulness. But even before I start talking about it, I have to give you a few warnings. What I'm going to tell you is just a minor, small taste of it, because it is a huge subject. And so whatever I give you is just minuscule. What I have is some resources for you. I believe that active learning, is much more powerful than passive. What I'm going to say is passive. You're just going to hear me. But if you take it, and if you go and pursue it, if I can arouse your curiosity, and you go ahead and start researching it, it will have a much bigger impact on you. So that's my hope. None of this material is original. It's all from teachers, whether in person or on the internet or podcasts or whatever, books. So, but what it is my packaging, and it is my experience. And some of it you may not agree with, which is fine. Just keep an open mind, and then if it doesn't jive with you, forget it. The whole idea of this is the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being of us. And what is more important than that? So that is basically my whole gist, is to help ourselves in all these ways to become better human beings. So what is mindfulness? because it's difficult to really grasp it. Just, well, it's to be present in the present moment. But the best definition is basically by a guy named John Kabat-Zinn. This guy was a scientist, and he introduced it to the secular and scientific world, and he was a graduate of MIT. So he says, and I'm going to read it because it's important that you get everything in it. It's awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose to the experiences of the present moment, non-judgmentally in the service of self-understanding and wisdom. So what it's awareness of the present moment, of the experiences that you're present in. But it's also non-judgmental. We judge everything, including ourselves. And we do it to the understanding of wisdom. Basically, it's simple. When you're doing something, you're doing something. You're not somewhere else. Whether it is with a friend, with a loved one, whether you're doing your work, whether you're eating. We have a disease going around, and it's called ADD, Attention Deficit Disorder. We are distracted all the time, and basically it is getting back to what we want to be attentive to. We want to do something intentionally, and then we get distracted. And mindfulness just brings us back to what we originally intended to be. It is a state of being rather than doing. All we do is do, and what we have to learn how to be. And it embraces all states of the mind, not only the things that we like. So basically, mindfulness has three major components. So what are they? The first is concentration, focus of an extraordinary degree. You know, Michael Jordan a lot of athletes have the same talents as Michael Jordan, but what distinguishes him is focus. And like every other, whether in any field, focus is one of the most important things, because then you put it all into a sharp object, as opposed to being scattered all over. But apart from this, you need something else. There's clarity. You need to be clear. It's the ability to track your sensory experiences as they arise in different combinations, to untangle them. They're all jumbled up. We really don't know what we feel a lot of times. They're all mixed up. So we need time to tease them apart so that we understand ourselves, to see the world as it is, not as we want it to be. And the third thing is equanimity. So equanimity is a big word, but it's a Latin word comes from Latin, equius, which means balance, and animus, and inner spirit. So basically it's a balanced inner spirit. It's a middle way between suppression and grasping. So all these three items, these are the basic components of mindfulness. Be able to focus, to be clear in what you feel and your experiences, and to be equanimous. Now, certain other attitudes will help, like patience, letting go, we're stuck with things, non-judgmental attitude, and a beginner's mind, which is willing to see everything as if it's for the first time with fresh eyes and no past biases. That is so important. It's called the beginner's mind. So the best way I can give an analogy to, you guys go to gym, a lot of you work out, right? So what do you do when you work out? You go to the gym, and let's take two things, to strength and flexibility. These are traits. So you want to be stronger and you want to be flexible. So you work out and you do exercises, weights, and you stretch. Now when you do this, do you just do it for the sake of just being stronger and flexible while you're in gym. No, you're doing it so that you have these traits all after that, during the day, later on the week, that you feel these traits, and you increase your baseline in your traits. So mindfulness, the state of mindfulness that I talked about, is the same thing. You have to practice it. And what do you call practicing mindfulness? Meditation. It is not something special or esoteric or any religious connotation. It just means that you're sitting and practicing mindfulness. Just like when you go to the gym. And you practice it not so that you're sitting in a chair or cushion for 10, 15, 20 minutes. That on its own doesn't make sense. But if you take these qualities of clarity, concentration, and equanimity and nurture them and practice them, and these traits become part of you, then you can take it into the outside world. Then you can take it and you can use it. And you use it in your life in every day. When you have an argument with your loved one, when your boss says something, when you get cut off on the road and avoid road rage, it will work there and it will help you. So you can only get stronger and more flexible to a certain degree, especially at my age. But with mindfulness, the sky is the limit to these qualities and traits. So these, whatever I'm going to say, like I said, is sort of limited. There are books and resources that I've left on the back table, and I highly recommend that you look at them. One of them is called Altered Traits. And basically, it's this book here, and now I'm going to go into the science, and this is my area. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I have researched it. And these traits, honestly, if you work on them, they will rewire your brain. And this is not metaphoric, this is actual. There's research, there's so much research done on that. And the research on mindfulness in the last 20 years has exploded. And there's two sides of it. One is how it works on the brain, and the other one is what benefit it is, what the research in proving the benefit. And this is all science-based, evidence-based research. It's up to you to go and check it out if you don't believe me. You go and check it out, read these sources, but at some level, you have to trust somebody. Otherwise, you have to start from the beginning, from steps in any science. So there is an element of also trust in the fact that somebody before you who's more experienced has done that, has been through it, and you take some of what they said for granted, and then you try it and you see. So there's concepts in neuroscience that was not there when I was in med school. Neuroplasticity. We thought our brains were just stuck at one stage when they're 20s and it doesn't grow anymore. Well, we don't grow our neurons, but there's regeneration and rewiring. Our brain can be literally rewired through reorganization. We can there's a science called epigenetics. We are not determined by our genes. Yes, we can't change our genes. Well, maybe in the future they will alter that. But the expression of our genes can be changed, because a lot of things we have a tendency, but then they're not expressed unless there's a trigger. So the expression is under our control. I can talk about the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic and all that. I can talk about the brain with the three parts of it, the upper brain and the midbrain and the base of the brain, the rudimentary. I don't have time for that right now. But I will tell you that the science is very clear that mindfulness works. And so You can check it yourself, but I want to read to you one thing, and this is from a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Has anybody read that book? It's an awesome book. It is an awesome book. It's on the bestseller list for years. It's written by a psychologist. A copy is there for you. And it's about trauma. Now, it talks a lot about child trauma and VA and veterans, but all of us have been traumatized by something. And it has nuggets in it. And I'm going to do one nugget. I'm going to read to you because he is very clear about an item called agency. You know what agency is? If you don't, I'll tell you. Agency is owning your life. Agency is the technical term for feeling being in charge of your life, knowing where you stand and that you have a say in what happens to you. And you're able to shape your circumstances. People, even in concentration camps, had agency. And you can be free and all of this and not have agency. So these veterans, who put their fist through the wall in a VA, were trying to assert their agency, to make something happen. They ended up feeling more out of control. Many of these once confident men were trapped in a cycle between frantic activity and immobility. Why? They didn't have agency. Agency starts with what scientists call interoception. So interoception is being aware of your subtle feelings, knowing how you feel. The greater your awareness, the greater the potential to control your lives. Knowing what you feel is the first step to knowing why you feel it. If you're aware of these constant changes in the environment, then you can mobilize to manage them. And do you know what we need to mobilize them? We need somebody called the watchtower in our brain. The watchtower is the medial prefrontal cortex. It is part of the cerebral cortex that controls our voluntary consciousness. It learns to observe what is going inside us. So this medial prefrontal cortex is enhanced, and mindfulness practice, which strengthens the medial prefrontal cortex, is the cornerstone of recovery. Without having the adult in the room, if you let your emotions run it, in the amygdala, which is the guard dog, that everything is frightened and you automatically react. If you don't have the adult, which is the medial prefrontal cortex, then you are run by a reflex emotion. And the studies have been very, very strong in when you meditate, this area lights up, and the amygdala, which is the one that frightens you, calms down. So the practice itself, there has to be a discipline, and the discipline has to be like anything else. You can't run a marathon in a day, you can't learn any skill. You have to have a discipline. And the discipline is a daily type of practice of not more than maybe 5-10 minutes, but the more, the better. 20 minutes is even better. A small place in your house which you declare for yourself, your spiritual corner, I call it. Group meditation is powerful, but it's not only that. You go do walking meditation. You can do eating meditation. We eat, we shovel in our food. We don't really enjoy it, we don't taste it, and our digestion is affected by it. So there's a lot of areas in life that you can use it. In fact, there is hardly any area in life that you can't use mindfulness. Nearly every single area. Now, it's not a cure, but it will enhance it. Whether you want self-understanding, whether you want to learn a skill, whether you are in a relationship, whether you have emotional pain or physical pain. All of these can be. So I'm just going to say one example about treatments of cancer. So they give immunotherapy for people with cancer. If you give chemotherapy and chemotherapy has a lot of side effects. Sometimes they're worse than the disease. If you combine mindfulness with chemo, the side effects are less. You can use higher doses. You can literally improve your prognosis. This is one small area of its effect that you can add it to whatever tool you have. I'm going to just say a couple of words about how. So how do you do this amazing thing? Well, it's easier said than done, because I'll tell you, it's frustrating. A lot of people have difficulty, starting it. So it's a focus. The mindfulness is the difference is what you focus on. And the two most common things are the breath and the body. We're all breathing, otherwise we'd be here. So use the breath and the body sensations. Now you can do mental images, you can focus on gratitude, you can focus on loving kindness. But the most important thing is this. Sit still and be silent. And there's a quote from the Old Testament that I love, and I think most of you know it. Be still and know that I am. Psalm 46. Without stillness, we don't know ourselves or any other power. So the breath. So now I'm going to switch. And I think what I'm going to do a little exercise, because we're moving into a different subject. And I want you to stand up if you can and stretch out a bit. Just move a little bit and then just relax. Now, just put your hand on your abdomen and feel the breath as you breathe in and out. You notice that as you breathe in, your belly moves out. As you exhale, it goes back to the spine. Now just move your hands to the side of your lower ribs. And instead of going forward, move your ribs sideways, outward. So inhale, and exhale. Moving the ribs out. And I'm going to count to 5 seconds. Inhale, 5 seconds out, and try to follow me. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. Count on your own. Exhale. Now let your arms go down. And come back to your natural breath. You can sit down. And just spend the next couple of minutes focusing on your breath as it comes in and goes out. Breathing in and breathing out. And you can name it. I'm breathing in. I'm breathing out. Thank you. So what we did, just so that we did what they call coherent breathing, that's the first part. Coherent breathing means that it is in balance, it's more efficient. It is 5 seconds inhale, 5 seconds outhale, equal. And then it adds up to 5 to 6 breaths a minute. Do you know how many breaths we usually do? 12 to 16. So that's why it's more difficult, because we're not used to it. And then we use the breath to focus. So in my many years of teaching this, it's somewhat difficult to really impress people about mindfulness and starting the practice. And so I have shifted a bit, because about a year ago I gave a talk to a group, and I got an email the next day, and the guy says, who was there, says, "Oh, I loved it, and I started practicing." I said, "Oh, great! I got a convert." So then in the next sentence, he says, "But you know, we're breathing wrong," and he gave me a link to a talk and the book, The Breath. And since then, I have seen the importance of breathing correctly. And that's what I want to now talk about for the next few minutes, about the breath. It is the most important thing, because you can eat well, you can have great genetics, you can exercise, but if you don't breathe correctly, it's not the same. So breathing correctly is one of the most important things. In fact, they did a study, a Framingham study, and it showed that longevity is more related to lung capacity than to genes, than to exercise. And so how you use your breath is more important. So I'm going to give you a few tips about breathing. It is the only thing that is voluntary and involuntary, because we don't think about breathing all the time, because it's natural. We breathe because we have to live. But it's also voluntary. So it's the only thing that covers both. It's a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. It's very critical that we know how, and we've lost that art. Our ancestors did a lot of healing with breathing, and now a lot of the modern research is really reconfirming what our ancestors knew about the breath. We talked about we did abdominal breathing. You see a lot of our sensors on the volume of the lungs in the lower part. So when you do abdominal and lower chest breathing, it's actually much more helpful and efficient than the regular breathing that we do the chest. But like anything else, you have to exercise it. You have to exercise your abdominal muscles and your lower chest. So the more you do that, the more you practice these types of breathings, at least maybe 10 minutes a day, the better you are. And one other thing is about nasal breathing and mouth breathing. There's a reason why our breathing is much better from our nose, because it's a filter, it warms the air, as opposed to my mouth breathing causes a lot of issues with health, sleep apnea, cognitive disorders, snoring. And really, we have developed ourselves into this mouth breathing much more than in some of these societies which knew that, and they actually, in some native societies, when the baby gets born, they close their lips so that they can learn how to breathe with their nose. And there's some simple solutions to it. And I left some of these tapes there, and they're very important that when you sleep, you do not, or you don't sleep with your mouth open. If you just tape it, it really works. And I have a mustache and a beard, and yet it's really something that is just, I encourage you to at least.
A third of this room's gonna die.
You have to make sure you don't have an obstruction. Okay, but it has been, it's really, really great. All these breathing techniques. Now there's breath with hold. There is resonant breathing, and this is really a rhythm. You know, we have to be in rhythm. Our brain waves, our cardiovascular rhythm, and then our breathing rhythm. When they're in sync, it works. So there's coherent breathing or resonant breathing that we talked about, and there is here. I'm gonna, if this works, I'm gonna hear this. This is an app called Pace Breathing. It helps you. You just listen to it, and it helps you. It helps you with kind of breath. You can put it as many seconds as you want, and holding, and as many exhale. So you can organize this to whether it's 5 seconds or 6 seconds. So this is controlled breathing or resonant breathing. You can do holding the breath. You can hold your breath for the box breathing that maybe some of you know about. It's for focus and concentration. There is relaxation breathing, the 4-7-8. 4 inhale, hold for 7, exhale for 8. So all of these are different kinds. There's also hyperventilation for specific performance benefits. It's a whole wide area, and it's very important that you focus it yourself. You start yourself on that quest. I really want to have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah.
And I think then I will end up with just a quote.
We've got about 5 minutes left, so anybody have any questions?
Yes.
You referenced the book, The Body. I didn't catch the rest of it. Keeps the score, is that one?
The body keeps the score. It's right there.
Okay.
It's in the back. The body keeps the score. Yes.
What are your thoughts on guided meditation?
I think it's great to have a guided meditation. I think eventually you do it yourself. You can start with guided meditation. I mean, music is good, guided meditation is good, but it's also very simple to, after you get in the mood, to just be silent. And there, even if it's guided, there has to be space for you to perform it on your own. Yeah, of course, guided meditations are, and it puts you on the right track. Like we all have to be guided by an expert, I guess. Yes.
Is there any evidence in terms of like meditating on scripture? Would that have the same effect on the brain?
I'm sorry.
Meditating on scripture, would that have any effect or the same effect on
There
the brain?
so you're talking about prayers, right?
Either prayer or meditating.
Or meditating, yes. Well, meditating on any source that is sacred to you can help. Any focus. So for me, you know, meditating is turning inside, and prayer or scriptures may be looking for some outside help. And they're both complementary. They both enhance each other. And I said that mindfulness can actually enhance your spiritual life. It can just like any other activity, it can enhance. So they're complementary as far as I'm concerned. And you can use object of your focus, and you can use it on a mantra or your scripture, and that is all very, very well documented too. Yes.
Where did you go on your silent retreat? Have you been back?
I do go. I once a year. I have been going to Arizona, to a very secluded area where there's no cell phone, in the mountains. You know, Vallecito's retreat.
Is it guided or is it yourself?
It is. There are sessions that they guide you, and then you stay alone also. You see, we're not used to being silent. It's counterculture. We are always busy, and it's to our detriment. We need to refuel, and we shortchange ourselves. Live, run, and then we die. And so, it's a cliche, we don't stop to smell the roses, but it's very deep. And we miss out on relationships, loved ones, and the essence of us, the authenticity of who we are. And I feel that this is missing. And the breathing is part of us. Breathing is integral. It's our survival. It's in a lot of ancient Semitic languages, the word for breath and soul and spirit is the same. Ruha. In Arabic, in Aramaic, which is Jesus' his language, and in Hebrew. It's mixed. We have, I don't want to go into dualism and oneism and all that, but we have separated. We have separated everything, and yet it's all connected. And that needs us to slow down and be silent and listen to our inner selves, our inner body. And that we sometimes say we don't have time. But I don't take that as a good answer. I think we prioritize. I think when you say you don't have time, you just mean that it's not your priority. That's all. When I call somebody and they say, well, I gotta do, well, that's okay, but it's not your priority right now, which is fine, but say it as it is.